Right now, though, Kirsten Kukowski from America Rising with us again here talking midterms. Welcome to Walks in the Afternoon.
Happy Friday. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, I'm glad you can make it for sure. And wanted to get at least talk to you today, maybe once or twice before the actual election. But again, now, America Rising, what are you guys up to?
So America Rising is a research firm based in Washington, D.C., but we're doing work here in Minnesota. So I work for America Rising here in Minnesota, working on targeted congressional races. We have a lot of them. I'm sure you all have seen a lot of the television ads, radio ads, heard the radio ads, et cetera. But we focus on a very specific part of what it is to campaign for elected office. And we look at opposition research and try to make sure that when candidates are out there campaigning, that voters and the media has the appropriate context to report on. So, what a candidate has said on the same issue, over the years and over the weeks and days to make sure that we're holding them accountable.
Interesting. Okay. So any special interests, campaigns that you're really paying attention to in Minnesota? I got to think the Jason Lewis, Angie Craig campaign has got to be red hot with material.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, that one. So we basically do that. There's 4 really very targeted congressional races here in Minnesota right now. So we have down in the first congressional district, the second congressional district, the third, and the 8th. So it's a very busy time as we gear up 25 days to the election. There was just a debate actually on Minnesota Public Radio this morning between Dan Feehan and Jim Hagedorn down in the first congressional district. That was very interesting. A lot of discussions about health care, about taxes. One of the things that came out of that is the Democrat Dan Feehan's apparent support for a carbon tax, in addition to all the other taxes that he's been supportive of. So that came out here today, and something that we're going to be working on getting to the people down in the first congressional district. So yeah, that's just one of the kind of interesting things that came up today.
Years ago, before your time, Kirsten, there was a very interesting election with Norm Coleman, Skip Humphrey, and Jesse Ventura all running for governor. And it was at that time that the Democrats were trying to say they supported smaller government and lower taxes. And that's why Jesse Ventura was able to win, because both sides had exactly the same message. I feel like we're seeing a little bit of that right now, yet I've never known the Democrats to be for smaller government and lower taxes. Are we busting anybody for trying to take that mantra?
We're certainly trying. It's interesting. The first is actually one where the Democrat might be running slightly to the left of his predecessor, Tim Walz, which is kind of interesting, an interesting dynamic with him running for governor now. But I'd say in congressional districts 2, 3, and 8, the Democrats are definitely kind of, trying to be kind of Minnesota Democrats, right? I mean, maybe with the exception of Dean Phillips in the third. But yeah, up in the 8th for sure. Right where you have Trump territory, where the district went for President Trump, and you have a Democrat who maybe is trying to play a little safe and try to be more, more like a Republican. So we are definitely trying to hold them accountable. We just got some really good tracking footage from up in the 8th, specific actually to Keith Ellison and what he thinks about Keith Ellison and the distraction and issues that have been happening with him here. So it's been interesting to keep these guys accountable this cycle.
Is that going to be a make or break for some of these candidates? How this Keith Ellison thing plays out in the next 3 weeks?
Well, it's going to be very interesting, right? I've been a little disappointed, I'll say, in the amount of coverage, asking the Democrats about their support for Keith Ellison. Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of times where Republican candidates are asked about, where their positions on Trump and do they agree with this and that on Trump, on Kavanaugh, et cetera. But we haven't seen a ton of that Democrats being asked about Ellison. So we're continuing to work on that for sure. Obviously, big news today. A couple of news outlets won their lawsuit to open the records, the Keith Ellison divorce records, which has been in question for a while. So we should be seeing those in the next couple of days next week. So it'll be interesting. There was just a national news story, actually, about, how Democrats here in Minnesota are very weary of Keith Ellison and worry that he's a distraction for their campaigns. So I think it's now just kind of holding people here in Minnesota accountable to ask about that and get some clarification from these candidates over the next 25 days.
Any other if that's huge news, by the way, any other big issues, Kirsten, that you're seeing with regards to, possible, negatives for Democrats?
Well, some of you may have seen a lot of this in Congressional District 3. You have Dean Phillips against Eric Paulson, and one of the big issues has been in Dean Phillips and has started Penny's Coffee, and this issue of whether or not he offered health care or provided health care to his workers. And he has been on the record in the past saying that when they opened, that it was too expensive for him to offer health care for his employees.
Sure.
Something that a lot of employers do.
That was the argument, right?
Exactly. But now as he's a candidate, several years later, now he's arguing that obviously he's for health care for all. And so trying to make sure that voters understand that what is coming out of some of these candidates' mouths when they're running isn't exactly how they've lived their lives. So that's been that hypocrisy with Dean Phillips and Congressional District 3 has been something Eric Paulson's campaign has been really, obviously really focused on, and we've been focused on with pennies and healthcare, but also, where he stands on energy, but where his, how he's against a lot of these energy corporations and talks about them on the campaign, but he's been invested in them financially over the years. So that's the kind of thing we really take a look at and make sure that we're holding these people accountable as they're out there campaigning for everyone's vote.
Seems like if they do those things, they should then campaign on them. Yet they're trying to campaign on the opposite.
Exactly.
It's just disingenuous. All right, Kirsten Kukowski, interesting as these things come up. We hope to chat again a couple more times before the big election on November 6th. Wow, coming up.
Very close. 25 days. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope that I can come on a couple more times and tell you, a little bit of an update. I'm sure we'll have more in the next few days and weeks.
All right. Thank you. We'll take you up on that. Appreciate it.